Who or what is God to you? Is God a big king on a throne in the sky somewhere looking down at all his lowly subjects, deciding whether they should have good lives or bad? Or perhaps you, like many 12-step groups, perceive God to be a higher power that somehow you can look to guide you along God's path. Well, who and what you think God is will determine how your life goes. Well, personally, I like the one advanced by Ellen Davenport, a Unity minister in Texas, who wrote a book called The Five Principles. And in it she says, God is principle, just like the principle of gravity. Now, the law of gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. Let's say you're around the house and you're doing a little repair work and you're climbing up on a step ladder, and all of a sudden you fall off that step ladder. Was that because the law of gravity was mad at you that day? Did you not do something that the law of gravity wanted you to do? Have you been a bad person and the law of gravity had it in to get even with you? Well, that's how a lot of people look at God. But when we realize that God is first and foremost principle, and that principle is love, it can make a tremendous difference in how we approach life. And by the way, everything in life is a choice, with one exception. You have to breathe or you have to die. Everything else that we do in life is a choice. So what's your choice when it comes to God and how you perceive God and what God means in your life? If God is love, how does that affect how you interact with other people in your life? You see, that's a choice too. TV's Dr. Phil has an expression I like a lot, because what he says about anything anyone else says or anything anyone else believes is his signature line, how's that working out for you? Because that's really the guide and rule we all use in life. In other words, whatever you choose to believe, the bottom line, how's that working for you? So, my question to you today would be, how's your belief system working for you today? Is it giving you what you want? Is it delivering the kind of life you'd really like to live? Or are there some things in your life that, well, could stand a little improvement? Just because you say things like, I believe in God, and I believe that God is loving me and wanting me to have the very best in life, does that mean that you're always getting the best in life? Or do challenges come up for us sometimes? Of course. I don't care how attuned you feel you are to God and God's principles. The fact is, certain things will come up in life that challenge you. But again, those are opportunities to learn. You know, every decision we make in life, every choice we make in life can give us value, either in getting us the outcome that we want or giving us an opportunity to learn something that we absolutely need. But life is a learning experience. That's why one of my personal slogans is ABL, always be learning. Learn from every incident that happens to you in life. Some people say we learn from our mistakes. Well, that may be true, but we can also learn from our successes. We can learn what works and what doesn't work. And that's the real bottom line in life. How's that working out for you? Well, let's take the area that a lot of people are concerned about, the area of health. How healthy are you? Many generations ago, back in biblical times, there were two groups of people purporting to help people get better health. They were the priests and they were the witch doctors. And they both took different, opposing sometimes, viewpoints on what made people healthy. Now, they also divided the people between them. Some people thought, oh, the priests, they're the ones who can get us healed. Other people thought, no, it's those witch doctors. They're much more scientific. They're much more attuned to the various rhythms of the body, and they can get us healed. Well, that controversy went on in one form or another for hundreds and hundreds of years thereafter. And it divided themselves in today what are called the religionists versus the medical people of today. Neither is it good and neither is bad. But the question is, what is getting you what you want? The Unity movement was founded by a woman who didn't ignore the medical prognosis, but the medical prognosis for her condition was fatal. The cancer of her time, which was called tuberculosis, had taken its hold on her body, and she was given up to die by the medical authorities. But she went to a metaphysical lecture one night in Kansas City, and from that lecture, she heard words that burned in her brain. And the words were, you can affirm the health you want, you can deny the prognosis of others. Affirmations and denials. And she practiced this on a daily basis. She was completely and totally healed of this so-called fatal disease. Her husband, a real estate broker not given too much to religion, was impressed by the fact that his wife wasn't going to die after all. In fact, she was perfectly healthy and lived for many years thereafter. And so he started doing research into unity and how we can become more at one, which is what unity means, with God and God's principles, and use them in a practical manner in our everyday life. Thus was formed what originally was called the Unity Society of Practical Christianity. And the emphasis was on the practical. Can you make it work in your everyday life? Jesus the Christ repeatedly said, as you believe, so it will be done unto you. Not as the doctors told you about, not as you have faith in some great power to come down and heal you, but rather as you believe the possibility of healing exists in and through you. You get your healing. Many of his healings were done only when people of his time would agree to believe that they could happen. You must believe. Another area many people are concerned about is money. Cuba Gooding Jr. made history and show me the money. You can talk prosperity all you want to. You can talk tithing. You can talk anything you talk about prosperity, but show me the money. In other words, how is this working out for you? Not just in money, but in every area of your life. As you give, so you will receive, says the Bible. Not how much do you give, but as you give, meaning the attitude with which we give determines how receptive we are to receive. We will receive no more or no less than what we are willing to accept at any given time in our lives. If we are willing to settle for just getting by, that's what will happen in our lives. We will just get by. Or if we're not satisfied with that and we're willing to have more in our lives, we go within once again, seek our guidance on what it is that we are to give so that we can receive more out of life. But it is totally giving first and then receiving. When you give friendship, you receive more friends. When you give love, you receive more love. When you give of services, you will receive more services from other people. In other words, the manner of your giving determines the manner of your receiving. And the manner of your receiving determines what you will get. Malachi 3 in the Bible has a quote that often is shortchanged in the quoting. But it goes something like this. Prove me now, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that there will not be room enough to receive. Now that's the part that's often quoted. The part that's left out is the part immediately preceding that verse, which says, bring you the whole tithes into the storehouse, saith the Lord, and prove me now if I will not open you the windows of heaven. In other words, you have to do the giving first before you start doing the receiving. What about love? Oh yes, we all want love, don't we? Every creature on the earth wants love. Do we all get it? Do you have as much love in your life that you want right now? Well, how do we get more love? The same way we get more money, by giving more love. Not just to that special little someone, but to everybody that comes into your life. Love is a universal element that all people want And all of us are capable of giving if we will do so. Giving love is not determined by how another person acts or how they dress or how they behave. Giving love is something you choose to do regardless of what the other person chooses. It's your choice to give love. Now, of course, there is romantic love, and that's fine. However, there's other kinds of loves. There's love of friendship. There's the kind of love that says, I may not agree with what you're doing, but I love you in your quest to determine it. Because remember what we said a moment ago, every one of us is going through our lessons in life. And some people's lessons might be totally different than your lessons. That doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean you're right. It just means that you love them through the process, because every living, breathing creature on God's earth is a child of God, made in his image and likeness. And as we learn to love that Spirit of God within them, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what's going on, it will bring more love into our hearts. And we will feel much better, not only about them, but about ourselves as well, because self-love is important as well as love of others. But we can only receive what we're willing to give. That's our choice. What about peace of mind? Do you really feel peaceful at the end of the day? I know a lot of people lose themselves in their television sets, watching some drama to release them from having to think about themselves and their life and what it's about. Other people have different forms of diversion. Maybe they go to sports games, or maybe they go to the movies, or maybe they go out and play bridge with their friends, or poker, or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with these activities unless we are using them to escape being at peace within ourselves. But the peace of mind comes when you are totally alone, when you relax, when you allow yourself to breathe deeply and not only think, but feel the presence of God within you. That presence that guides you to the next step in your unfoldment, to the next thing that you are to do, to the next person that you're to meet, to the next activity that you're to take part in. Now, if your guidance tells you to move in a certain direction, by all means, move in that certain direction. But take time every day. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, maybe a few times during the day. Take an extra few minutes to breathe deeply. And as you breathe in, imagine God's presence within you, guiding and directing you. As you breathe out, imagine yourself letting go of those things that have stood in your way. Breathe in, God. Let go of those things that have stood in your way of being a more God-expressing person. Because as we open ourselves to be open channels for God's expression, wonderful changes, wonderful miracles are going to take place in our lives. Years ago, I read a book that changed my life at the time. It was a book by a West Coast psychiatrist, Dr. Jerry Jampolsky. It was called Love is Letting Go of Fear. And one of the things that particularly impressed me about this book was he said, the mind is like a movie projector. If you imagine yourself sitting in a theater, watching a movie up there on the screen, and for some reason or other, you take exception to that movie. You don't like it. Something happens on that screen that you're not fond of, that you really get angry about. So to solve the problem, you rush up to the screen and start tearing big strips off the screen, right? No, you say, that's ridiculous. That won't change the movie. What you'd have to do to change the movie is go back to where the projector is and change the film that's in the projector. Well, guess what? He had an important life lesson for each one of us. The life we're experiencing is a projection of our mindset at any given time. As we think, so we are. As we begin to change the manner of our thinking, as we begin to go within and get our guidance, as we begin to be willing, and to do what is my favorite affirmation of all time, let go and let God. Things begin to happen. Miracles begin to occur. Let go and let God.